Hello, I'm Michael Verney and welcome to the Indo GAA Club Pod. Delighted to be joined by Niall McIntyre. Niall, how are you going?
Not too bad, Michael, can't complain.
And you're obviously still in the middle of the club. You're playing away. I've hung up the boots now. I'm standing on the sideline at the minute. Busy but brilliant time of the year.
Oh, it is, absolutely, yeah. I suppose it's at the peak of it now, and unfortunately we lost at the weekend now, so we've a relegation battle coming up in the next few weeks.
I always think the weather starts changing over the next couple of weeks, and it's great actually to still be involved when the weather is getting kind of wintry again, because you know you're probably at semi-final, county final kind of stage. It's a wonderful time of the year because other people are sitting at home and they get a week off and then they're like, oh my God, what am I going to do for the next 2 months or whatever? So it's a great time to still be involved. But we have a beautiful clip from Clubber that sums up, club championship, drama, agony, ecstasy, and we're going to play it here. It's the closing minutes of Rowan Moore and 4 Mile Water in the Waterford Senior Hurling Championship quarter final in extra time last weekend.
Will they try and work it short? There is utter silence. There is consternation throughout the 70, 80 minutes of action here. Now the 4 Mile Water crowd just raising their voices. Gavin O'Brien sends word to post. It's short. Is it going to fall into the goal? It's in the goal! It's in the goal! I don't know who got the goal. It's absolutely erupted here at Welsh Park. I don't know who got it. Rowan Moore have taken it from the fire. It's surely over. My God, what a finish. What a finish.
And it was over. Rowan Moore booked their semi-final place. I believe there was a bit of carnage after. A couple of opposition players doing a bit of wrestling with each other, and I believe there was a bit of water squirted in the way of the 4 Mile Water sub-bench. But that kind of sums up the drama, and that's the length and breadth of the country. In every county there's something like that happening every weekend at the minute. It's brilliant.
It is. It's all kicking off there, and yeah, it was one of those ones at the end of a game. It's often a shot to nothing, and they usually come to nothing. But Rowan Moore just somehow I don't think they even know who scored it, as the commentator said, but they got it over the line. It was a sickener for 4 Mile Water.
Isn't it gas how the game is so tactical now, and a lot of the ball is played between the lines for 55, 56 minutes, and then it gets towards that final stage, and sometimes it's just get it into the mixer and see what can happen. And invariably something does happen because it's panicky, there's pressure, and different things happen at the end of a game that probably wouldn't happen at any other stage in a game.
Yeah, your tactics nearly go out the window, don't they? And if you're playing this possession brand of hurling, you don't really have time for it when you're 2 points down in the last minute of the game. Sometimes you are as well nearly taking your points in if you have the time on side, but I don't think Rowan Moore did, so they just let it in, and yeah, it worked out lovely for them.
Brilliant way to win, an absolutely sick way to lose, and we've all been there. Not nice. The Waterford Championship, Niall, Ballygunner going for 12 in a row. They had a big win over Passage at the weekend. Pádraig Matney's only just getting back on the pitch, and it's been business as usual even without him. That wasn't the only dramatic bit of action in Waterford over the weekend. There was some crazy stuff in the Mount Sion game as well. They managed to hold on in injury time against Clonea as well, in injury time of extra time. Austin Gleeson got a sideline, and Ian Iggy O'Regan managed to save, I think it was a header to save them at the end. Like, it's just mad. Apparently, like, his hand, he had a hurl in one hand and his other hand was free, obviously, but his head was what was closest to the ball, so he just threw his head on it. Nuts.
Unbelievable, yeah, unbelievable. Mount Sion, Austin Gleeson seems to be in good form for them. I think he'd 5 or 6 from play.
They shipped him up, actually. They shipped him up to the forward line, I think, in extra time. Yeah,
and early on in the game he scored a point from his own 45, like. So this great drama there. You probably imagine that, like, Ballygunner, they're so hard to stop, but maybe it has to happen at some stage that their dominance would end. Whether it'll be this year now, not sure, but we'll see.
I'd say highly unlikely. It's Ballygunner and De La Salle, those great rivals, in one semi-final, and it's Mount Sion and Roan in the other semi-final. And yeah, with due respect, I think Ballygunner are going to be very, very hard to stop. They're in the intermediate final. Not sure if it's this weekend or the weekend after against Tallow as well. That'll show the strength and depth that they have. And Harry Ruddle, who we all know from that famous goal against Ballyhale in the All-Ireland final a couple of years ago, he got a goal as well at the weekend, but it was business as usual for them. Loads of great club stuff to look through at the weekend. We have to talk about Paddy Hogan's goal though for Danesfort at the very end. This is not something you typically see. Paddy, I would have played against Paddy years ago. I played against him in the Leinster Colleges final. I think it's a shame Paddy didn't get to have the career with Kilkenny that he probably could have had. I think he was a bit of a fall guy at one stage for a couple of losses. Richie's older brother, brilliant player, could play anywhere between half back line and the half forward line. Brilliant player, but he's back in the goals for Danesfort now. And you might just even describe the goal at the end. Like it's not something you typically see, shall we say, when we're all about routines and visualisation. He completely ripped up the script. Yeah,
well, 3 points down, and I suppose they got a free. It was about 30 yards out from a bit of an angle, and he comes up from the goals. Like, I suppose Davy Fitz back in the day, sprints up, doesn't really break stride, kind of slows down a small bit coming up to the ball. He doesn't need to place it, doesn't need to line it up or anything, just rise it and smacks it. He kind of bounces it into the turf, which was obviously a good idea on a dry day, and it just, I'd say the Cork Shock defence, they just seemed to be, I'd say, surprised first of all that he hit it so quick. I'd like to definitely were expecting him to take a shot when he was coming up from goals, but just that he hit it so quick, didn't stop at all, and stunned them, and then he's running back, powers back to the goals with a pep in his step. It's amazing because I've been on the line, as you probably have, and half the battle is been ready and bracing yourself for the shot. But if you haven't even had that half a second to say left, or right, or whatever, and it's a little bit of consternation, and he obviously took advantage of that. That was in the Kilkenny Intermediate Championship. There was a lovely clip, well, it's a tough clip on the defender now, where TJ Reid sends an O'Loughlin Gales defender for a hot dog, and turns back onto his favourite left and puts it over. Isn't it great that there's so much footage out there now, and that we're seeing like all these little bits and pieces? Like, I think the only positive thing to come out of COVID was streaming, particularly sports streaming and GAA streaming. Imagine the amount of things that would have been missed had we not got, the wealth of games that we have available to us now. Nearly everything is shown now, and it's great. Everything is, yeah. And, you've these brilliant clips like that Rowan Moore one we played at the start of the show. Just pure excitement and drama. It's happening every county, every weekend. We weren't seeing it before. They were all streamed, and now they're popping up the whole time. And I suppose it increases your, you've more of a idea what's going on at counties, especially at this time of the year, in the group stages, when before now you wouldn't really have a clue. You might see the odd game on TG Caher or something like that, but you wouldn't really know the drama, the ins and outs. And now you kind of have a fair idea who's going well, because for myself anyway, after seeing, say, a clip like Paddy Hogan's, I tend to check the group stages, see who's going well. And, you see that Danesfort, they were unbeaten at the top of the intermediate table in Kilkenny. So you kind of see how it keeps you up to date with how everything is going. I love the local commentary as well, because with due respect, say the national broadcaster, you're paid to be on the fence, so on the fence. You can be excited and that, but you're paid to be on the fence. Whereas these boys, they know all the lads that are playing. They could have involvement with some of the clubs playing, and you often see that where there's a link with one of the clubs, and they just go absolutely berserk when something positive happens. Or on the flip side of that, it's almost like F and Eddie sometimes when something negative goes wrong, or there's a card thrown out or free knock given, and they wear their heart firmly on their sleeve, shall we say. I've seen it a few times in Tipperary, and lads are slagging other lads who are playing, and sometimes it can go a little bit but it's brilliant to watch, isn't it? You get the excitement, and it's definitely unfiltered is what we see there. Yeah, that's what you want. The Carlow final as well was at the weekend night, one of the first county finals to be played. I was down there. Mount Leinster Rangers weren't favourites, but they ended up turning over St Mullins, finished 119 to 16 points. An unbelievable
would say 5 weeks for Paul O'Brien, who was an analyst with your own Tipp, who won the All-Ireland and very, very well got by all accounts. Very, a serious kind of hurling brain and a hurling mind. He kind of masterminded Mount Leinster Rangers getting back on top there. And it was a really interesting story. Frank Foley was in the goals for Mount Leinster Rangers, just 47 years young, made his debut in 1997. Were you born in 97?
I was born in 97.
Were you actually born that year? I thought it was in around that, all right. But he was saying like he's 20 years married this year even. He's saying like the year I got married, like there's boys playing with Mount Leinster that like now that weren't even born and this kind of crack. And he's got 10 county medals now. And I've never really seen this before. So in general play, he plays with his left hand on top. And he's holding her left hand on top and will strike it that way. But he takes his puck outs with right hand on top. And he's always, I don't know when he learned it or whatever, but he gets more distance when he has right hand on top. But he's more comfortable in general play with his left hand on top. And he said Owen Roach came down as coach this year for Mount Leinster, and the first night he was like, what's the story with your man? Like, story with his hands, he keeps changing his hands. And he just said it's gas, because you've seen it I'm sure at club level as well. I think of Peter and Ger Helium with Kilcormac Kalati as well. They always switched hands. Wally Walsh would be another one. Sean Dowling, that played with Kilkenny years ago, would be another one as well. He was known as an Omlock hurler. You see it at club level now. Taggy Fogarty be another one. Lads just are comfortable with a certain thing, and that's the way they've played, and it doesn't really make much sense, or it's not conventional, but it works for them.
Jeez, that's unbelievable. I've never heard of someone like, the Wally Walsh and Aidan Forty example. That's the way they strike the ball all the time. Yeah. They catch it in the left and then put the left on top, which is unorthodox in itself. But I don't think I've ever heard of anyone changing like for different kind of scenarios in the game. But I suppose he's around for so long. He definitely knows what works for him. I wonder, does he do that? Does he go back to the left hand on top when he's hitting a short puck out, or is it just for the long ones that he's like, right, I have the distance here, I'll put the right?
I think he takes his puck out to a right hand on top.
Right.
Yeah, he's just said he's more comfortable doing that. That's always been the way. But he said he'd be doing a drill beforehand and he'd be pucking around with, I think it was Fiacre Fitzpatrick, I think was he pucking around with, and it's like, what hand do you want me to hit the ball to? Like, because it's really good in a way, because if it comes over here, he can catch it with his left. If it comes over here, he just switches hands really quickly and catches with his right. But it's definitely a unique one. And he just said as well that was the sweetest one they've won yet, because the old team of we were written off. By Jez, if there was every year for being written off, 2025 was it. Ye boys down in Lurradurra will be pulling something out or some paper clipping or something like that. But it's funny. It's so basic, but it does work. It's not going to work every day, but it might work for, a one-off game.
It absolutely does. And wasn't that, did you see what they wrote in the Carlow Nationalist?
I know, because it was really funny, because I was in the press box in Dr. Cullen Park, and Kieran Murphy from the Carlow Nationalist was beside me, absolute gentleman and a real stalwart in the sports writing game. And there was a few owl lads down in front, and they were looking back up at the press box, but not kind of looking directly at Kieran, but they wanted to make sure that he could hear it. Right. And I just says, Kieran, listen, as long as they're reading, that's all that matters. Doesn't matter whether it's right or wrong, as long as they're reading, that's all that matters. But that's like, there was a great one, I think it was the Kilkenny under 21s back, could be nearly 2 decades ago now, but they were playing Dublin in a big under 21 championship game in Nolan Park, and there was some article written, could have been the Indoor, could have been some other paper, maybe the week leading up to it, and it was like, Kilkenny and Dublin set to take over, the hurling world or whatever. And the article was on the wall in the dressing room, and by all accounts, like, the manager in question had put the article there, and some of the boys that were in early had seen this, and nothing was said or anything of it. And then they were getting ready to go out, and the manager just looks at the wall and is like, and what's this? And he just starts reading it off, and sure, like, boys were fit to go out through the wall, this kind of crack. But it's a basic form of motivation, but it definitely does work. Just going back to the Tipp Championship, some interesting results there. Mike Carkey Boris, managed by our own Eddie Brennan, flying it. They had a good win over Kilroy McDonough's at the weekend. Holy Cross Ballycahill had a big win as well over Killadangan, the county champions, a couple of years ago. But one thing we have to pull out is the Cashel Kilcormac's win over Nina Rogue, which was probably a bit of a surprise, because
4-1.
Yeah, probably a bit of a surprise. But the save, talk me through that save.
Yeah, well, Mikey Heffernan is on the ball out in the wing, and I suppose himself and Jake Morris will be two of Nina's key forwards. He played a lovely ball into Jake, who seemed to be having, a brilliant battle with Owen Connolly throughout. Jake had a good game and, scored a penalty in the first half. He gets out in front of Connolly, shakes him off, and I suppose he has so much time because he was after losing him. Like he found himself with a bit of time about, I suppose, 16, 17 yards out. And I suppose because he had the time, he said, I'm going to wind up and bury it here. And I suppose usually when he's scoring goals, he'd score them on the run and, he'd hit them low. But at the same time, it was just an unbelievable save as well. You have to give credit to the goalie, Aaron Brown, the former Tipperary minor and under-20 goalie.
Reflexes.
Just unbelievable dive and save, and kept it out somehow. And yeah, I suppose it was a key one in Cashel winning the game. Like they won the Premier Intermediate last year in Tipperary, beat Upperchurch in an unbelievably high-scoring game in the final in Semple Stadium. And it's their first time up senior since 2014. And, they've made a brilliant start because they beat Mullinahone in the first round, Nina now in the second round. So they're looking good for a place in the knockout stages. And, it was a surprise win because Nina had beaten Thurles in the first round. Yeah,
it's funny as well because I know Paul Carroll from Tipp FM did a kind of an interesting, they do kind of blind rankings and that type of thing. And he did an interesting thing where he put, it was like 6 different categories. I think you were in the bottom category actually. What was it? I need to be careful or something like that, was it?
Could be in trouble.
Could be in trouble, yeah. But Cashel were down close to that, or need to be careful, and guaranteed you take a bit more motivation from that. But they're in a good spot now. I think they're trained by Owen Cadigan as well, who's doing some good work at club level as well. But that save from Aaron Brown, it just infuses a team with oxygen when a lad does something that looks impossible. I was amazed that Jake didn't hit into the ground because he always hits it to the ground. But maybe, as you say, because he actually got to plant the feet. When you're going forward, probably easier hitting into the ground because your momentum is bringing you forward. He hit the penalty into the ground, did he?
Did he? I forget now.
Yeah, he's 95% of his shots are usually into the ground, because I always kind of say it, and you're saying it to lads when you're doing a bit of coaching or whatever, the top bin looks unreal when it hits it, but just get the ball over the line, any means necessary. And the ground ball, I think, is always a better ball. Just a bit of football over the weekend as well. Stephen O'Brien, who's obviously finished up with Kerry, he got a massive score by all accounts to help Kenmare get a big victory at the weekend. Yeah,
it was a hugely dramatic game. They were 5 points down in injury time, and they conceded a penalty in injury time. So you're thinking Milltown Castlemaine are home and hosed here, but both teams, Kenmare were down to 13 men, Milltown Castlemaine were down to 14, so just huge drama. And Milltown were leading by 2 points 68 minutes in, and Stephen O'Brien, apparently he's only back from Australia a couple of weeks, and he just stepped up and ran in. We've seen him so many times. He has great speed, and burst through the defence and clipped it over from just outside the arc, so sealed the draw for them, and they're through to the knockout stages now, and Milltown Castlemaine are knocked out. So
okay.
Yeah.
Jack Barry was another one. He was very, very good for Nagale at the weekend. Of course, there was talk about him being drafted into the Kerry squad when he came back from his travels, but he was influential for them. I think Stefan Ockenbar, I think he might have been playing in the States during the summer, but he's back now and injury free by all accounts.
The two lads are back, and Nagale are going very well at the minute in the Kerry Championship. It was a huge win for them in the first round, beating Austin Stacks, who they were once a part of, Nagale are a very young club, only started in 1979, and they were once a part of Austin Stacks in Tralee and kind of went their own way. And they've been on a bit of a journey. They won the All-Ireland Junior Championship in 21, then won the Munster Intermediate in 22 to get up senior in 23. And while they haven't really made an impression yet, this year they are, and they've won their 2 group stage games, and they're through to the quarter-final now against Dingle. So, great strides for them. Diarmuid O'Connor he was playing as well, and he's back after,
a couple of big names there when you look at it, what I mean, to build your team around, And
lads who have been missing, so they're probably very hungry as well, the likes of O'Connor, Barry and O'Cunber. So, definitely a team to watch, and they're going brilliant so far.
I know Colin Keys of this parish was up in Mayo at the weekend to see Andy Moran. Didn't make the pitch. There's lots of great pictures, in fairness. You love to see it, even him coming into the car park, and there was someone wishing him luck, I'd say, from behind the fencing or whatever. That's an interesting one, because he will see game time. They beat Charlestown at the weekend. Charlestown's where the Gallagher's mother is from, I think, actually, because I think they might mention it even on stage in Cork there the week before last. But they beat Charlestown by 4 points, I think. He didn't see any game time. He's 42 and he's come back out of retirement. But I think it's really interesting. He will see game time and he'll be on the pitch. And you're kind of just wondering, you're a county manager here, you have lads that want to make an impression. What's an impression like? Is an impression like roughing up the county manager? Is it an impression being nice or lenient to the county manager? Do you know what I mean? Because like all's fair in love and war between the 4 white lines. Like, do you know what I mean?
It's hard to know. Yeah, he'll have a great view. Like when you're playing, you'll be very involved and you'll see what's going on, and he'll know different players who are going well against Ballahadreen. The example is Conor Laverty. Obviously, he's in the same situation playing with Kilkenny. But it is an unusual situation. You wouldn't see it too often. That county manager. This is who all the other players are trying to impress, and he's playing in the team against them. So it's just unusual situation.
You definitely you see a lot from the stands and the sidelines. I think particularly at club games you actually are privy to a lot more because you're right on top of it. County games you're further back, you don't hear or see as much as what's going on. But he's getting a bird's eye view, isn't he? Like, you're getting a really good view of opposition players, potential county panellists. And I don't know if you saw Kobe McDonald was kicking frees for fun over the weekend. Kieran's son, who's well touted now at this stage, he's the sort of player that could be in there and maybe not see a whole lot of game time in 2026, but he looks like the sort of fella that will definitely be, a regular in time. But from Andy Moran's point of view, I think you're seeing firsthand what's available to you, and not being smart, you're seeing the bit of niggle that's going on, because you need a bit of niggle. You need lads that are willing to veer towards the line or potentially to the other side of the line as well.
Yeah, it could even be a lad that he's marking when he's corner forward or corner back that, maybe he doesn't like marking a lad that's giving him a bit of niggle that might, he might think, right, this could be the lad for the county panel. So, it's brilliant.
Just in the Cork Championship, I think in the Cork Football Championship, Shane Kingston, who we'd know probably better as a hurler, he's by all accounts a decent dead ball kicker in football as well, from what we saw at the weekend. Yeah,
he scored a good few points for Douglas. One of them was brilliant. He ran through and a few spins and kicked it over off the right. No bother to him. So he's well able to play. It was Douglas. They'd won the first round, but Nemo Rangers beat them by 8 points there at the weekend, and Nemo have lost the last 2 finals now, so they seem to be like a team on a mission, I suppose, down in Cork, and the last time they won was 22, so they're going well. They've started with 2 wins as well, so it's all kicking off down there.
I know I did a piece with Donnacha O'Connor, the great Cork player, there over the weekend. He was kicking football for Ballydesmond, a junior club, at the weekend. They were bet by Erhan, actually, but he's some interesting things to say. He's 44, obviously. Duhallow, the regional side, they won the colleges / divisional trophy already, so they're awaiting somebody in a quarter final. They won't be playing them for a while. But he said something that I thought was interesting, because I potentially maybe would have thought not the opposite, but he said that in the off season, I was like, what do you do in the off season? He's like, I have to stay going in the off season. It's almost like oil in a car or something like that. If you don't keep the engine nice and loose or whatever, he just sees up. And he said the thoughts of taking 2 or 3 months off and coming back, and just how hard it would be. He just couldn't fathom doing that. So what he does is he goes, trains 2-3 times a week, even in the off season, and it keeps the body kind of ticking over. And that funny kind of like, some lads like a break. Lads, it's just gas, because everybody's different. Some lads like a break, other lads like to keep ticking over. Like, I'm sure you've seen certain lads come back from 2 or 3 months off and they have enjoyed themselves, and the pain you have to go through to get fit is, I can't imagine it. I never liked doing that. I like to keep ticking over. But some lads just do the dog on it all winter, and they come back and like there's blue smoke flying left, right and centre in those first maybe 6-8 weeks.
It's the different characters, isn't it?
Yeah.
I suppose he's probably so used to it's just part of the daily routine. You know, I'd say that you're doing a bit, and even when you're not training, you're drawn to whether it's going out for a run, going to the gym, keeping fit. Like, I'd imagine Johnny Doyle is the same way. Like, it was meant to be retiring after last year, but he was back again playing like senior for.
He ended up in hospital, didn't he? I think.
Yeah.
He's out, I think, at the minute now for Allenwood. Yeah, which would be fairly sick if he came out of retirement and ended up hurt.
Yeah. Oh Jesus, he would. It would test you, wouldn't it? But it just shows, like, you know, some lads, that's what they do. They're addicted to it, I'd say, nearly more so than anything, and that's how they keep going. That's
even what Dan Shannon was saying last week, is like therapy or a drug, almost going down and pucking a ball. Frank Foley was saying the same. Frank and Dan are the same age, actually, and I'd say they'll both still be doing a bit when they're 50, but when you're so used to doing it, like, it's like trying to give up something called turkey. How do you do it? You know?
Yeah, it'll be hard for them lads to, like, when are they going to do it?
Yeah.
They'll stay playing, because, you know, the likes of Donnacha O'Connor, Johnny Doyle, they're still playing at the top level.
Yeah.
You know, of club GAA.
It's not just like pulling the old gear bag out to play a junior B game, like.
No, they really are, like, miraculous that they're able to stay going at that age. Like, I suppose some lads, is it, I don't know, you lose the appetite for the hunger when you get older, or I'm not sure why. I suppose it's probably injuries for a lot of lads.
Yeah.
But the boys managed to keep it going. It's unreal.
I'd be 10 years their junior now, and it was probably injuries and fear of injuries. I've had that many injuries, like, you'd literally be taken to go on training and you'd be like, oh God, please don't happen again. We played G, actually, in a challenge game down in Brennan's Park, maybe 3 years ago, and it was my first game back, and I was like, I was fairly sure I pulled my calf in the warm-up. Like, I was fairly sure I did. And I was like, oh no, what am I going to do here? Am I going to try and stay going, or am I just going to limp off again? And I hadn't pulled my calf, but I think it was half mental, but there was something there.
Yeah.
And I just went and played the game, and I was like, I found the last couple of years there was all sorts of stuff going on in my head about this is wrong, that's wrong. Some of it was like real injuries. Other things was like your body, like, I don't know, this, like, I don't know, fight or flight your body had. The day of a game the last couple of years, my body would just shut down completely. Like, I'd be empty going playing a match, just because it's like my body knew, like, there was this, like, war coming, and you had to be completely empty going playing a match. It was crazy kind of stuff.
How do you mean empty, like?
As in you'd be on the toilet most of the day. Not in a bad way, but your body would just be emptying any excess, and you'd actually feel great come match time. You'd be really light.
Yeah.
I know that sounds a bit mad, but fear of injury would have been one of the reasons why I got. It was nice to actually get out in one piece. But some of them boys you're mentioning there, the likes of Johnny Doyle, Dan, Donnacha O'Connor, they're just built a bit different. Like, to be able to still do it at a really high level, like to be playing senior, Frank Foley the same, to be playing senior nearly 50 is ridiculous. So you've a lot to live up to. another 20 years minimum. Niall, that was great, and we'll be back again in the next couple of weeks to review all the club action.